Daddy, we're playing.
I'm doing a podcast, Dizzy. Hello and welcome to the Too Cool for School podcast. I'm your host Yannick, and on today's episode, we'll be discussing how we educate parents around football and life after football. So I've got an amazing guest with me, and I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Hello guys, my name's KK Boyson and I'm the founder of Proficient Youth Development.
Great stuff. So let's get into it. So KK, it will be good to know, like, what made you start this project around supporting and educating parents around navigating this, this big conundrum that is, football.
I think from my personal experiences, growing up, I loved playing football, loved watching it and whatnot. And for me, I wasn't really encouraged to play professionally. I'm West African, and obviously, I don't know if you know, but like a lot of like African families or parents, from my observation, it was a case of like, nah, we're not playing football. You're going to school, you're going to do engineering, or you're going to do this, you're going to go uni, you're going to get a stable job. Football's seen as risky. Yeah. So for me, I loved it. And there was a time when I went to university and I studied sport and exercise psychology. And for my final year dissertation, I actually wanted to do a project that I could resonate with. So my project was about looking at parents and families, actually, African families who are actually involved in the football system in academies. So like looking at footballers like, let's say, for example, Iwobi, who came through at Arsenal, looking at, okay, he's African, West African like me. What is it that his parents knew that mine didn't know? So I looked at it like that and I thought to myself, there must be something that these parents know. It's not just because they're West African that they don't want to know about football. It's like there's some that may not want to know because they're not really educated on certain aspects of football, but there are some who do want to know. So it's like about looking at, okay, how can I get that knowledge? How can I tap into this audience to actually like look at what they do know? And then from there, that's when I wrote my dissertation, had some interesting findings, and then from there I started a year later, I think a year and a half later, I started Proficient Sport Parenting. It was just focused on getting content out to parents, advice to parents and whatnot. And then I broadened it because I work in a secondary school as well. So I broadened it like in a way where it could actually speak on behalf of the children as well as the parents. So from there, I started Proficient Youth Development, where I now look at the parents' perspective, but also look at the child's perspective. So I try to like get that holistic balance in. So yeah,
That's important. No, that's definitely important. And what would you say from your experience so far that you would say is like one of the biggest misconceptions that parents have about the footballing like pathway? So when they're thinking about that pathway from when you start football into the Premier League and whatever else, like what's some of the misconceptions that you often see?
I think sometimes parents can put a lot of pressure on their children to be the finished article from the age of like, let's say 9, 10, 11. Children are being judged at that age as well. I think it's crazy to try and judge an 11-year-old to like say that they're not going to be a footballer because they haven't got this now. Though you can obviously have your opinion on, let's say, an 11-year-old and say what they need to improve on and whatnot. I think what parents sometimes misunderstand is that they think that they have to have that final product. They have to be that final product. And I think that's what I think parents need to get, is that it's not linear, it's not one-dimensional. It's something that, okay, you might not be the best in your year group at under 13s. You might not be the best in your year group at under 18s. But there will be a time where if you keep working at it, if you keep looking to improve, if you keep working on your mistakes, if you keep like sharpening your mentality and your game, then you will get somewhere. So I think it's about parents actually being patient and playing the long game. And I think a lot of the times parents, sometimes they look at it and think, okay, like if I want to get an academy, they need to be good now. And once they're good now, they're guaranteed to make it. And it's like, no, football's not like that. Football's, as I said, it's not one-dimensional. So it's just about having that patience and just, riding every storm and whatnot.
Yeah. And would you say like the money that's come into the game has changed the way parents have approached football, and I guess I asked that both considering the pressure that they're putting on, children now, because I've seen it with family members. As soon as someone gets signed at
Yeah.
9, 10, it's like you can already see the dollar
Yeah.
signs in their eyes. They're like, yeah, man, like we've made it.
It's gonna take us out the hood.
And
yeah.
even that take us out the hood mentality, or like even from birth. Oh,
Yeah.
it's a boy. Oh, it's gonna be a footballer.
Yeah.
know,
I've been guilty of that as well. It's,
Yeah, man.
I think, yeah, I would say, if we're being honest with ourselves, yeah, like it's a lucrative career to get into. Let's not beat around the bush when it comes to that. Like it is highly rewarding if you make it as far as you can. I think that obviously puts a lot of pressure on parents, especially parents who haven't come from a place where they are, earning a lot of money, like low income households. Sometimes football is their only hope, kind of thing. And when you like transmit that pressure onto a child, the child can feel it. Some children actually thrive under that pressure and think, you know what, I'm not just playing for me, I'm playing for my family. I'm playing for my lineage, my generation, whatever. Some children, unfortunately, can't handle that pressure. And it's not about, oh, children, you need to be able to handle that pressure. I think it's more so that parents need to understand that children need to enjoy it first and foremost. And when you do these things and you add that sense of pressure, it takes away from that joy sometimes. That's when it becomes a bit of a chore. That's when it can become like a job kind of thing at the age of, like, let's say 12, when it's supposed to be fun. And you shouldn't really be thinking about money like that. You should just be doing it for the joy of it. But once you think about money, like, studies show that when you do something for monetary gain, eventually you're not going to enjoy it like that. And football is a career, like a lot of careers, of course, where you have to enjoy it to stay in it. So if you're going to be doing something for the money first and foremost, it's going to be very difficult for you to actually get that sustained joy that you should want to get.
And so you mentioned earlier that some children, thrive under that pressure. And I guess for me, should they be put under that pressure? Should they be having to think, oh, you know what, I'm doing this for my family and doing this forever? And I'm comparing us here in the UK, where parents are dropping you off to your football matches and whatever. Most of the times that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
In comparison to, when we hear stories about, oh, N'Golo Kante had to run 20 miles to whatever else, and this South American kid had to do. No, they're really hustling and grinding over there, where football, compared to the real life pressures of what they're going through, is so minuscule. So why is it that here in the UK, like, we're expecting in some aspects for children to thrive under that pressure of, I'm doing this for my family, in comparison to what you said, where you need to be doing it for the love of the game?
Yeah. I think, again, that expectation of like doing it for the family, it's hard. I don't think that it's right to do that all the time. I think you need to know the child. I think a lot of the time it's about knowing the mentality of the child, knowing what motivates the child. I think let's say, for example, the child in South America or in Africa, like, they, to be honest, whether they play football or not, they're going to have that grit within themselves. So it's something where it's like, if they want to be an engineer, they're going to have to hustle towards it. Like, it's something that's ingrained in them. So when you have that with football, it's like they've got that grit already that they need to survive in that part of the world, but they now are applying that to something that they love. Whereas here, it's like, you don't have to be gritty with everything. Like, you can it's very easy to just go to school and, go to your after school clubs and all that and the other, and, be in a low income household and get by, I guess. But like, if you want to like break through the ceiling, of course, it does take you are required to like put in that work kind of thing. And for some kids, they're not used to that. Some kids some kids drop out of playing football because it required a different version of themselves that they weren't willing to actually commit to. So I think it's down to that level of, are they committed to, are they willing to? It comes down to the child ultimately, if they really want to do it and how much they love it and whatnot. I think it does just all the time. I always say that the child has to enjoy it, and like that pressure, they will thrive under it if they enjoy it. If they enjoy playing it, and it's not seen as a job, it's not seen as I'm rescuing my family. Children, if they feel like they have to rescue their family, like adultifying any child is dangerous in itself. So doing that with something like football, it's like, come on, like it's gonna be hard for them to sustain. Yeah.
No, 100%. And I recall, like when we was younger, a lot of like my friends who were in academies, like the mindset of me and my peers was, so and so's at West Ham, or so and so's at Charlton, or so and so's at Arsenal. Like we're good, we're making it out of the hood.
Yeah.
And if we're putting that pressure on them and we're just friends, God knows what was happening.
Yeah.
Like internally at home and whatever else. I want to ask as well. I want to talk about like relationships, and I know like the player coach relationship is important. How much important is the parent player relationship as well?
I think it's foundational. I think how it's not just like parent player, it's the parent person. Like you need to be able to, don't parent the player, parent the person before you parent the player, because at the end of the day, they're players, but they are your children first and foremost. So you got to know them, you got to have a relationship with them. Sometimes I've heard footballers talk about, like, they don't even talk about football with their parents, and they've got the best relationship with their parents, and that's actually helped them to thrive in football. So it's like, some people might think, okay, the parent-player relationship has to be that I have to give them extra training sessions, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to motivate them, I have to, be their coach, and it's like, sometimes obviously that's needed, but when you actually focus on the person and knowing the person, like the player parent relationship will take care of itself. Like that will produce its fruits when you actually prioritize the person before the player.
Yeah, that's important. And what are some of the common mistakes that you see or hear parents make around how they support their kids around football?
I think one big one that a lot of people in football would agree with me on this is wanting it more than the child. I think if you, like, there's a way that you can ruin something that a child holds dearly to themselves if you want it more than them, if you're overbearing, if you're imposing yourself in what is their escape from the pressures of their world. Like if you're wanting it more than them, and that manifests itself by you putting the pressure, you saying you have to do this, you telling them to go for runs all the time, you telling them that you have to eat right all the time, and you be more committed to the game than them, it's like it's gonna be hard. It's just gonna be difficult.
So those are the signs that parents should be looking out for in terms of, for them to know, actually, am I putting like overbearing pressure on my child? These are the sort of things they need to be mindful of.
Like stuff like if the child's not talking to you, or like opening conversation about how their football game has gone, talking to you about, like, let's say for example, this happened in training today, I think I can improve on this, or like just coming openly. We can, like, you got to look, it's not even unique to football, it's just about understanding children within them, like in and of themselves, like knowing, okay, this child, you can tell this child enjoys this, or you can tell this child don't really want to do this anymore. Like you can tell by body language, you can tell by mannerisms, you can tell by how they're speaking about it, that if they're enjoying it or not. You can tell that, okay, when it's time to go training, they're like, oh gosh, you can tell. And it's like, I've spoken to a parent where they saw that their child wasn't enjoying playing football at a certain club anymore, so they had to make a decision about that. So it's like you can tell that by like mannerisms. You can tell when their shoulders drop, little stuff like that. I think indicates whether a child is enjoying it. And the thing, just to go back to your question, in terms of like the mistakes that parents make, is wanting it more than their child wants it, and like seeing it as a one-dimensional thing, and also trying to impose themselves like over the coaches and trying to make it a thing where it's like they're competing with coaches. Like it's just,
I've seen that.
yeah, it's just, it's obviously coaches aren't perfect. They're not going to get it right all the time, but they are the coaches for a reason. When you're challenging coaches saying, oh, you're playing my son in the wrong position, he's this, he's that, it's like the coach knows how to develop players. They've probably done it for years and years. And it's like when you're doing these things, some coaches will have perceptions of parents like, this one's a difficult one, and it's not like school where it's like you have to like manage with this child because like you can't kick them out because of a difficult parent kind of thing. And like academies, like they will probably look and think, I've heard stories of like, let's say for example, coaches talking about like players and thinking, yeah, but that parent is quite difficult though. Like this player's good, but their parent is a nightmare kind of thing. Whereas this player's equally as good, but parent dream to work with. They let us get on with it. They trust us. I think that's a big thing as well. Being able to trust the coaches that are actually investing in the development of your child. I think that's a massive thing. I think if you're not able to do those things where you can trust the coaches and let the coaches do what they're supposed to do and not be overbearing and imposing on your child, I think you'll be fine.
And do you think the nightmare parents damage the child's prospects as a result of that?
They can if it's a thing where because there's a lot of like with football, with these things, a lot of it is about relationships. A lot of the time, like there's footballers now who are, let's say for example, playing in the championship first team, but obviously not to slander anyone's ability, but it's like their relationship with an ex-coach that worked with them 5-10 years ago is what's landed them in this position now kind of thing. So a lot of it is like, okay, you need to be able to have that positive relationship with the decision makers at the club, with the coaches at the club, to be able to like relate to them easier. It's just about that.
A lot sometimes in commentary, and where like a former manager would just say, oh, like that player, it was a delight to work with. And that was it. It's not that the player's good. They're just like, they're good to have around. Like they come, they train, they get on with it, go home. There's no And sometimes people like that. So before I move on to my next question, okay, so this is the scenario. So a child's had a bad game.
Yeah.
They're in the car.
Yeah.
With dad or mum or whoever. They've had a bad game. How do parents approach that conversation in terms of feedback? And not just how, when. Do you give it a bit of space? Is it a silent car journey? Like, how do you navigate that? Because I've seen the worst side of it.
Yeah.
But what does the good side look like?
I think it comes down to what I said previously about knowing your child. Like some parents know their child needs a grilling for them to actually like process that they've had a bad game and to actually turn things around for the next game. Some parents obviously know that their children need that time to decompress and then be in a better headspace to actually have that conversation, maybe in the car or in the kitchen at home. Some parents know that their child is really thinking about the game that they've had, and some children, they don't need their parents to tell them they had a bad game. Some children are their own worst critics. So it's like in their mind, they're thinking, I've had a bad game. I did this wrong. I did that wrong. Sometimes a parent could just do something as simple as, let's go get something to eat. Let's go home. Let's go get something to eat. Let's watch a movie. Let's do this. Let's do that. Take their mind away from it. And that's not to say you ignore the performance, but when you acknowledge it, you just need to know when your child's in the right mind space to do it. Sometimes parents just want to get out of the way and say, you know what, I'm annoyed that I traveled this, and I get it. Obviously, you travel long. Some people travel across the country to watch their child, and the child's had a stinker. I get it. It's not ideal, but you need to look at what you're prioritizing at that point. Are you prioritizing just you venting your emotions and venting your feelings? Or are you prioritizing your child actually learning from what you're about to say? And I think when you actually look at, okay, this is what I want to say, I want my child to actually learn and actually hear and understand what I'm trying to say right now. So what's best to do? How is it that I can do this in a way that they'll be able to process what I'm trying to say? And all those different ways, all those different techniques of, like, let's say getting food or eating whilst talking about the game, or like, you know, just reassuring them that, listen, like, it's not that it's a bad game, you did this wrong, this is what you could do right. Like, taking their mind to the next game, allowing them to move on with it. I think you've got to be able to know your child and know what your child needs at that point. I've got, let's say, 2 nephews, and 2 of them have different personalities. And it's like, one, you could probably grow more than the other. One, you have to be more positive and reassuring with than the other. And it's like, you just need to know these things. And I think that it's just about, like, reading the room, reading the room and understanding, okay, this is what's required.
Yeah, no, that's important. And I know a lot of, you know, families who who have kids in academies are managing not only like footballing pressure, but the pressure of school as well. Especially when it comes to like the GCSE years, so like year 10 and year 11. How big of a challenge is that for families to balance?
I think it's difficult because it's obviously somewhere that their family hasn't been before. A lot of the time, unless they have older siblings who have done it. Like, all families will have to experience that for the first time, innit? So I think it's difficult for different reasons. I think they are trying to, a lot of the time, the way they play now is different. It's not just, okay, play to win. It's play to actually secure a spot for under 18s most of the time, especially when it's under 16s. You're trying to get a decision. You're trying to get your scholar with an option for a pro, depending on, you know, the setup of the club and whatnot. And you're also trying to get GCSEs. You know, if you're pursuing one of them alone, it's difficult in and of itself. So, like, trying to balance the two is like, if you don't have the right support system, if you don't have, like, let's say, not like the support system, and how that looks is, you know, parents that are on board, teachers that understand what the child is going through, coaches that understand what the child's going through, you know, staff at work, not at work, sorry, because I work in the school, that's what I said,
Yeah.
staff at the school and staff at the club that actually understand, and them actually communicating with each other and actually trying to, like, form that team around the child. It's like, if you don't have that, it can be more difficult. Whereas if you do have that, you will know, okay, this is what this child has gone through at training, or this is what this child has got coming up in the next week. They've got a mock, so they need to prepare for this. So training is going to look a bit different leading up to this mock or leading up to this actual GCSE exam. Communicating to the club, saying, okay, cool, you know, they got this GCSE English exam coming up. They're currently sitting at a grade 3. They need to get to a grade 5 within, you know, a month. What can you do to support? And little stuff like communicating these things, like revision sessions, like when to have the revision sessions, actually, you know, making sure that, like, everyone's pulling in the right direction, everyone's pulling in the same direction as well. When you can do that, then it becomes easier to balance. It's not easy in itself, but it does become easier to balance.
And in terms of priority,
Yeah.
do you think it can ever be equally balanced? Because I've had experiences of students who were in academy, they don't care about school. They don't care about GCSEs. They're just focused on the football. And as a result, their engagement with school, their engagement with teachers and whatever else, begins to deteriorate, and they essentially don't have that buy-in with the school, because they're like, okay, you want to be this footballer and whatever else, but you don't even care about school. You don't even care about what we're putting in. And then the narrative, towards the student then becomes negative of, oh, not that many players make it, and and it becomes like a conflict. And you know, so for me, it's like, can it ever be equally balanced?
Um, I don't, I don't think it can be equal in the sense of like the time you put in. You're gonna be in school 6 hours a week. You're gonna have your exams and whatnot. No, 6 hours a day, sorry, for school. So that's what, about 30 hours a week or so. You're not going to play that much football in comparison to school at that age. So in that sense, in terms of like the time you're committing, no. But in the sense of your attitude towards it, yes, it can be equal. I think it can be equal when you look at it from the perspective of, yes, not many players make it, and that's why you need to actually take school seriously. But at the same time, if you've got a talent, you need to try and maximize that. I think it's about, again, it goes back to what I said in terms of like the kid has to see that it's not guaranteed that they're going to make it pro first and foremost. Like I had a teacher, an ex-teacher of a Premier League player now. He's currently, starring in the Premier League, and I was asking a lot of questions to this teacher about this particular player, about how they were in school. Why is it that this person who was at an academy whilst they were in year 10 and year 11 actually cared about school? Why did they care? And she said something very simple. She said, because football's not guaranteed. Like, nothing's guaranteed. This person was a team player. This person was one of the most talented in the year group, but they knew that they were entering an industry that doesn't guarantee returns, regardless of how much you put in. There's no guarantees. You could be injured. You can have a coach that just doesn't like you. Like, all of these things can happen. So it's about you putting yourself in the best position possible to get the GCSE so that you can actually have options after football. You have options if football doesn't work out for the next year or two. And I think it's about kids and young people seeing that, parents seeing that as well. Because sometimes you'll be surprised, parents will be the ones that actually propel this narrative of not needing school and actually going towards, football full time and whatnot. There's some, I remember, I posted something about Max Dowman, I think in the summer, and and then Jamie Redknapp, was talking about the fact that he's entering year 11, he's gonna need school and football to balance well, and the comment section was just flooded with, "Well, I can't lie, he doesn't need school, he doesn't need school, he doesn't need school," and it's like these things. It's like, again, it's like, do people just think that because he's made his debut at 15, like, he's just going, hopefully he does go straight to the top because he's talented.
Yeah.
But it does, like, it's not a guarantee. That's just the only reason you need to be able to take these things more seriously.
It's tunnel visioned, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's tunnel visioned. They make something that's not a guarantee so fixed, and there's no other option and alternative around it. And what we often find is if that collapses and there's no parachute or there's nothing to, for you to fall on, that's why you often, hear those tragic stories of, mental health deteriorating, at the worst extent, because you've made, this entity, your everything, and you've essentially, you've essentially got nothing to fall back on. So, yeah, I totally understand. And, when we think about families, navigating, that, what is like what is some or what does a healthy week look like for families who are trying to support their children who are doing like their GCSEs? Like how can they support in revision? What does a healthy timetable look like essentially?
I think it's again. I think it's about getting that balance right. Everyone's reality of balance will look different. If you are an academy, then knowing okay, these are the times and the days that you would have a session. Knowing, that you need to schedule this time. It's about compartmentalizing, basically. You need to be able to know that okay, when you're at home, when you don't have training, and you're at home, you take an hour to do this particular piece of revision. I think it's about the quality of the revision that you do, the quality of the training that you do. You can read a book for an hour and a half and think that you're revising and you're not. Whereas if you know how you learn and you know that, okay, you need a video to actually go through the exam question with you whilst you're completing it, and you know that you're taking in the information and you're accessing that level of content, then that's what you repeat, that's what you do. I think the week, how it looks like, again, you look at where you have training, you look at where you don't have training, and you actually schedule in the time where you don't have training, you do the work. Schedule in when you don't have, school on the weekends, of course. What do you do then? You have a match. You rest. Obviously, you need to implement rest as well. You can't just be work. It can't just be school and football, school, football, school, football, school, football. You need to have that. They are human beings. They need to have that outlet. They need to have free time. They need to be able to have that time where they can decompress, PlayStation, going out with friends or whatever. Have that time because they need it. They need to offload. They're going through a lot of pressure at the moment. So it's about planning your week ahead, knowing that this is what it looks like, this is what's required of me, this is the time that I have, and this is how I'm going to tackle each task, and doing it and refining the quality. Okay, what went well last week? What did I do well? What do I need to improve on? What do I need to work on in football? What do I need to work on in school? What are my teachers saying that I need to work on in my work? What are the coaches saying I need to work on at football? Like being able to look at that and being able to look at, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be working on. This is what I'm going to focus on this week. And every week having at least one or two things that you can focus on.
Oh, that's key. And in regards to being released, because it's something that's so common and happens to so many children, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad player, because we hear people get released from one club to another club and that club ends up buying you 10 years down the line. Like it is what it is. But when you're that age, when you're a young player and you're being released, like how can families support their child around that, essentially?
I think you got to look at. I think it's hard, like being released from a football club. I've never been at an academy before, so I don't know what it's like first time to be released from an academy. But like when you're known as the footballer, when you're known as the baller in school, when you're known as the football boy in the family and whatnot, that expectation, like you can carry that becomes you. That becomes what you're immersed with. That's the identity that you wear. That's probably the only identity that you wear when you are playing football. Like I am X, Y, and Z, the footballer. And when you get released, it's like that sense of identity that you've held onto so tightly is stripped from you. And you don't know how to respond because it's never, like now you feel lost. Now you feel like, who am I, kind of thing. How parents can help with that is remind, like even when your child is actually doing well in an academy, not just making things about football. Like one of my nephews, he signed to a brand in the summer, and I was talking to him, and I was just like, the line of conversation that we're having, I was talking to him about, you know, secondary school and, you know, how he should navigate in secondary school and whatnot. And like, you know, being friends with people that don't just want to be his friend because he plays football, because, you know, it's not guaranteed. Like it's something where it's like, there needs to be a sense of meaning that person feels that they have beyond the game, and being able to remind your children of that, whether they're doing well or not in the academy, you know, because ups and downs will come. When those downs come, you know, it's about them being able to get themselves back up, because they know that, you know, they are more than what they do. Like football is what you do, it's not who you are. And I think it's about being able to like remind them constantly, give them that assurance that their value transcends the game.
Yeah.
And then when those times do come, it is going to be something where it's like they'll know how to navigate it. But that's something that families have a responsibility to uphold on.
That's powerful, man, and that's important. And I wanted to ask as well, do you think parents like posting like their children online like harms their development and their growth? Because obviously social media is powerful now. So you see someone online and, you know, the young players, very young, getting sponsored by brands now, and all of these things going on, and everyone's the next star boy, and they've got their picture with Saka or whoever else, hoping that in 10 years' time they'll then post it like so-and-so did, and be like, oh, look at, you know, my story. So do you think that hampers their development?
I think it's that's the debate. Like, should children have social media platforms? I think yes and no. I think yes in the sense that, like, it's not inherently wrong for your child to have a page that's dedicated to their football progress. But I do think when they have access to social media, it can be dangerous in the sense that the risky side of things, the comparison of, okay, I'm at this club, I haven't got a sponsor, but I've got this Instagram, and I'm scrolling, I'm seeing that my teammate or this person who plays for that club has a sponsorship. I've played football for as long as they have. Why do they have it and I don't? Like when like the child and the parent, to be honest, when they expose themselves to that is the risk of having social media platforms for your child, because like social media in and of itself, you're going to compare, you're going to look at it, you're going to see the highlight reels. No one's posting their struggles. Like, people are posting the highlight reels. As you said, people are posting the pictures of Saka. They're not posting, you know, the times where they're on the bench or they didn't score for 4 games and all that type of stuff. So I think it does. I don't want to say it directly impacts like football development, but if you take those factors into consideration in terms of like the comparison, in terms of like, you know, the comparison actually feeding into unrealistic expectation and pressure, then that's when like the development can be harmed.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. That's interesting, definitely, and I agree with that. And I wanted to ask as well, what do the parents of, you know, successful players tend to do that other parents are not doing? And I'm referencing because I'm thinking about whose mum was it? Was it Lewis Skelly? I think when he just came onto the scene and he just signed, I think it was for Arsenal or whatever, there was this big thing around like the mum and the support like the mum was doing, and you know, look what type of mum this is, and she's doing this and she's kept him in check with that and whatever else. Like, are there any other key things that you've highlighted, you know, whether this was during like your dissertation or your research, or, you know, just personal experience beyond that, where you've been able to identify it actually, when I've observed or when I've researched successful players, like these are the things that the parents are doing?
Yeah, I think there are some principles that are followed, and obviously, like, let's say for example, Miles Lewis Skelly's mum, Marcia, she has her own platform where she actually talks about this as well. I think being able to enjoy the journey, being able to learn from the journey, I think not like not putting the pressure on the child to like make it. You have to make it. You have to make it. You have to make it. Like seeing the joy and actually being content with, okay, if this was all to end tomorrow, it's been a ride. It's been a journey. We've had this experience. We've gone to this tournament abroad. We've like being grateful. Like I think having that sense of gratitude of playing football for free, not having to pay for your kit, not having to pay to access facilities. They sound very simple, but it's like when you actually have that as a foundation, it is something that actually changes your perspective of stuff. I think that is those are the principles. But in terms of like practices, from my experiences and from my understanding and from my observations, I think when parents actually allow their children to explore different sports as well and actually gain transferable skills, I think that helps. Like when it's a thing where it's like they're not just pushed to play football and only football, but it's like they can play chess or they can play guitar or they can play basketball. Like when you're able to do these things, you build a well-rounded individual. And when they and like before they know it and without them realizing, they are taking those cognitive skills that's needed in chess into football, that coordination that's needed from basketball into football, the ability to concentrate when playing a musical instrument into football. Like you're able to build that individual, because when you focus on building that individual, what parents do understand, a lot of parents do understand, that all parents should understand, is that these things, a lot of it is down to transferable skills. A lot of it is down to actually building the individual skill set that, if it can show in football, it can show in a lot of other places.
Yeah.
Like players aren't just good at dribbling. Players aren't just good at, skills and whatnot. That player that is, good at, doing 1v1s and whatnot, that player's got a personality where it's like they try new things. That comes from somewhere. It doesn't always start off in football. It just like football just highlights a personality trait that they have. Okay, how can you double down on that so that can be shown in different areas of their lives and whatnot? So I think it's about like cultivating that development in that individual.
Yeah, that's important. That's important, definitely. And as we finish off, I want to ask, so if there's any, families or parents who are listening to this and, they just feel overwhelmed. They're thinking, damn, like my kid's got GCSEs or they've got mock exams coming round. I'm trying to balance, being this academy mom or academy dad, and I've got issues with the coaches or whatever it may be, and they're just feeling overwhelmed, but they've got a duty of care, to their child. Like what is maybe one or two advice that you would give, to parents who are navigating this space and are finding it difficult, whether they admit it or not, are finding it difficult?
I think it's about you're not alone. I think find a community of people that have done it before you. Open yourselves to like new information that can actually teach you how to navigate these things better. Actually look at how can I say it? You've got to be able to have a system in place in terms of how you operate, how you function. You've got to have a structure. I think knowing what your structure looks like, developing a structure that works for you, developing a structure that works for your child, developing a structure that you can actually maintain for the duration of time that your child's going to be in year 11, for example, what that looks like, making sure that it's as effective as possible. I went back to like in terms of revision, looking at, being reflective, always looking to improve, always looking to, let's say, for example, you've got the pressures of being an academy mum and, a mum full stop. But, when you have a child in an academy, that can feel like an extra job. Okay, how do you make the most out of the time that you do have with your child? How do you allow your child to make the most out of the time they have in the car, for example. What are they doing in the car? What kind of conversations are you having in the car? Or you know, if they're revising and they only got, let's say, an hour today to revise, what does that hour look like? You know, how can they best spend that hour? Is it that they look over their exams and look at the mistakes that they've made and actually, you know, look at the patterns of mistakes that they've made and actually work on actually rectifying those mistakes? Is it that, okay, you know, they've already got, you know, 3 days of training and they've got, you know, a match coming up and they need to work on this so that they can actually have the best possible match. And when it does come, you know, how can you support them in that environment? It's about planning and having a strategy, knowing what to do, knowing what questions to ask your child, knowing what questions to ask yourself as well, and not being afraid to change something if it's not working. I think that's what's important. You're not going to get it right all the time, but for as long as you are taking things day at a time and looking back and looking to lean on support and to actually look for that expert advice and, you know, not try and do it alone. A lot of parents want to do it alone. A lot of parents don't want, you know, people to interfere. But it's like being able to ask that teacher, so what is it that my boy can improve on? Ask that coach, what is it that he can improve on? What would you recommend? You know, what book is it that I can read that can help me, kind of stuff. Like being able to be open to learning and just taking things day at a time. So yeah.
No, that's powerful. That's powerful, man. And you know, we've come to the end of the episode, and you know, I just think what you've been doing with your setup and your projects, and you know, your work on social media around educating, you know, families around this area, I feel, you know, is so important. And you know, when I think about a lot of my peers growing up who were in and around academies, like their relationship with their parents and the support from their parents is something that they often sort of query and challenge whether it was the right, you know, type of support, in a sense where they could see that they were good intentions, but in the way that things were applied were not necessarily, you know, in the best way. And similarly, I've been on the other side, you know, where as a head of year, you know, I'm having conversations with parents around their, you know, child or children who are in academies, and they're talking about the struggles that they're facing being, you know, an academy parent. So I think having a platform such as yourself where, you know, you're educating parents around this topic based on research, based on observation, you know, based on, you know, real learning and the experiences of others who are navigating this journey, I feel is important. And, you know, I'm sure and I'm confident that, you know, parents will sort of connect with, you know, what you're doing and learn more from you. So it's been, you know, it's been great to have you on the show.
Thank you, man. It was a pleasure, man. I really enjoyed recording and talking about this. I think it's something that, like, I wish all parents would just know and have that understanding and not feel as lost. I think that's what it is. You know, I do feel sad when I look at parents that just don't know what to do with the child who has bags of potential to do great things, not just in football, but just in general. I think that's what it is. I want to be able to give parents that direction because they are the first point of contact when it comes to, you know, the child's progress and growth and whatnot. They are the biggest influencers in their child's life. Yeah. So that's what it is.
That's amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So that has been the Too Cool for School podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our social media platforms.